security in order to keep an eye on you because you're not trustworthy. Now look, I don't think anybody can question the fact that there appears to be a disproportional number of minorities serving prison terms. That is not necessarily indicative of a disproportionate number of minorities committing crimes. It is, however, possibly indicative of the fact that they can't afford better attorneys, or they can't get preferential treatment in front of certain juries, regardless of whether there is an institutional bias within the court system that sends more blacks and Hispanics to prisons than whites. That's a topic for another day. The bottom line here is, are you really committing an act of discrimination, especially at a criminal level, if you are an employer? Say, for example, you work the quick service market. Say you're working for any of the big chains. Doesn't matter which one. And you're looking to hire a cashier. You have 3 people who are primary applicants for one position. You have an applicant who has lots of cashier experience in the fast food world. They've worked at several other locations, always left under positive relationship with their former employers, have great references. This is the person you really want to hire. Their background check comes back clean. They are great. But you've already done the interview process and you have done the background check on another one of your applicants who now has a criminal record. They have been in jail, or in this case prison. They've been in prison once, been in jail twice, both on theft charges. Now, are you honestly going to tell me that now it makes sense, it's reasonable for us to sit back and say, oh, by the way, we're the federal government and we're coming to sue you because you discriminated against this criminal and hired someone who not only was competent but had experience and could do the job and is not a criminal? Can anybody explain to me the logic that's used here? And yes, I know it is moronic on my part to expect any type of sense, any type of actual logic and reason to be found in the use of logic from the left. The extremist ideologues on the left have an agenda, and that agenda is the destruction of morality, the destruction of family, and the destruction of freaking common sense. They want a group of sheeple that will follow and do what they say, no matter what they're saying, even when they keep contradicting themselves. That's what they're looking for here. And speaking of contradicting themselves in the federal government, one of my favorite people, Jon Stewart, on his The Daily Show, which hasn't always been Jon Stewart's, but for some reason now it's referred to as Jon Stewart's The Daily Show. The Daily Show, been on Comedy Central for a while. Jon Stewart, not the first host, just for the record. At any rate, he had Susan Rice on this past week, and what an appearance it was. Now, Jon actually asked a few legitimate questions. Every now and then he actually likes to play the part of actual journalist. He is just playing the part, make no bones about it. Please do not mistake real hard-hitting questions for expectation of actual answers, because he didn't actually get any, and he played along anyway. But here's the bottom line. The synopsis is Susan Rice, the former UN ambassador, who was up for the Secretary of State job until she was caught going from Sunday talk show to Sunday talk show, lying to the American people, basically just said what she has been saying, and that is, it wasn't her fault she was lying. She says that she was just given the talking points and has no responsibility for lying to the American people. And in the process, She also just kept pushing the administration's spin that we're all focusing on the wrong things when it comes to Benghazi. The focus should be on making sure that this kind of tragedy can't happen again. Well, I'm sorry, Miss Rice, but I want to know why we were told an intentional lie. I want to know why Obama was MOA on the night that all this was going on. As we found out through reports after reports, he was nowhere to be found. He wasn't briefed on any of this until the next day because nobody could find him. He didn't make any phone calls to anybody that day or later that night. There is absolutely no trail that Obama had a clue this was going on. The occupier wants to sit up there and pretend to be the president and tell us what's best for us and what's good for us and what we should do and how we should act, but he doesn't even understand what the actual requirements of the job he has asked for and stolen his way back into office for requires. This man, and I use that term loosely, has failed the American people on so many different levels, it's not even funny. And I want to know why it's only a few small bits of information here and there that are being brought to our knowledge, being discovered by real journalists. Just happens to be coincidental that these happen to be conservative journalists, isn't it? Why? Because the entire left media continues to go to sleep and continues to tell us what they want us to hear and little more. I want to know why the administration has not come clean and just explained to us why they felt it necessary to go out and tell a lie. We are not a nation of sheeple, ladies and gentlemen. We will not be treated as such. Let's take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back in just a few moments. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back to Tap Into the Truth. Thanks for listening. Thanks for coming back. And it is time for us to talk about the main topic of the day. As I'm sure everyone knows by now, Chris Dorner, former NYPD police officer, has been positively identified as the body that was inside of the cabin that was burnt down after he was cornered into shortly after this rampage that he's been on. Rampage started a little while ago. The man believed he had been wronged. Okay? He had been fired from his job after an investigation discovered that he had lied about other officers who supposedly, according to him, allegedly beat a suspect. Now, he claims that this is also part of the LAPD. I was saying NYPD earlier, wasn't I? I apologize, not NYPD, the LAPD. The LAPD does have serious issues with corruption. They've been well documented for some time now. If this man was a victim of that type of corruption, the question becomes, what is a reasonable course of action for you to do something about it? Well, here's what he did. We all know this at this point. He posted this extremely long letter that a lot of folks are calling a manifesto. I went over it. I have a hard time actually calling it that. It seems like a rambling, open letter to me. Then, he kills the daughter of the former police chief. He ambushes a couple of cops. And then he kills some innocent cops while he's trying to make his escape as he's moving around and going place to place. And eventually he gets hemmed in to this cabin where he was prepared to do a lot of things. And people even now are wanting to make a big deal about how it was some great big conspiracy, that they burned him down on purpose, that they were never going to let this guy out, that this somehow indicates that he was telling the truth all along, he was some kind of victim. Ladies and gentlemen, do we really want somebody who's been the victim of inappropriate termination from a job to go around and kill people to make his point? I mean, to me, everything this guy may have been right about becomes completely beside the point once you go out and start killing innocent people, especially innocent people who just, their only relation to what went on is the fact that they happen to be related to someone who was involved. And then the other police officers that were shot and killed along the way had absolutely nothing to do with this. Now, I've heard reportedly people talk about the level of almost gang-like mentality that the LAPD has. And a part of that has got to come from the fact that they see real gang activity daily. And when you have gang-style mentality that you face every single day, you almost have to adopt the same kind of mentality if you expect to come out alive at the end of the day. You literally have to live in Los Angeles to really understand what that's like there. Maybe in a few other cities you might have something similar. There may be the same kind of thing that goes on in Detroit and in Chicago and in New York, but it's not the same as it is in LA. I have heard this repeatedly from multiple people, both folks that I know personally and folks that I've just overheard in other conversations, who have spent time in two or more of these cities. And they point out, quite frankly, that it's a different mindset there. So is there corruption in the LAPD? We certainly know there has been. But we also know that there's corruption almost anywhere that there's people and authority. If a person has authority over other people, count yourself fortunate if you're among the small group that has not faced some level of corruption. Should we focus on that corruption? At some point down the line, there should be a serious investigation to his allegations. But it's a moot point now, as he's dead. Have other people been done the same way? Maybe this will lead to some type of justice for some other people who actually handled their business in a mature, adult, reasonable, sane fashion that didn't include going around and killing people who had nothing to do with this. I could not believe my ears when I heard certain commentators and certain pundits on CNN in particular going on about how he's got a point. And yeah, this is almost like watching Django in modern life, and this is exciting. Yeah, I'll grant you, there was a tremendous amount of made-for-TV movie-style drama going on here, but I would not use the word innocent civilians being endangered as exciting. I would use it as terrifying. I would describe it as unreasonable. I would say that much like any average human being, by the time the members of the LAPD have this guy cornered, that emotions probably were running pretty high. Things may have been said that should not have been said. Actions may have been taken that probably shouldn't have been taken. Could this guy have been taken alive? It wouldn't have been easy. He'd already proven he would kill any one of them given half a chance, along with any innocent bystander who might happen to get along. Why take the chance of this guy getting away? Now, again, I'm not saying that they should have burned him. I'm not saying that the cabin should have been burned down. If it turns out that accelerants were used